Hi, I'm Cheryl Bernardi, the Wholeness Guide. And as you know, the 25th of November began the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, last year in 2021, November, I completed my book called The Wholeness Revolution, Living Beyond the Pain and Reclaiming Your Power. And it took me many years to write this book because it is very difficult to talk about gender-based violence. It is something that we'd rather avoid, something that we choose to rather look away from because we think it's a private issue. And yet, this private issue shows up in our public life, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our communities, in our friendships. And so we have to face the reality of what's causing the pain to happen in our homes, because it's not just the two people that are involved in a toxic or abusive relationship. It's also the children. And so the main reason that I wrote my book, The Wholeness Revolution, I started out writing this is because I wanted people who are stuck in a cycle of abuse and pain to realize that it is affecting your children. And you might not think that they are processing it, but they definitely are. And so this book is not just about a child born in a home that was not through her own choosing, enduring a private war. I felt that we were not normal. I felt that there was something wrong with us because of what was happening at home. And it has taken me years I hate when they say break the silence, because there shouldn't be silence around this. But it's not just the experience of growing up in a home and seeing this happen. You are being encoded with messaging that this is what love is like. Love is painful, love is difficult, and love is, it's just the dysfunction seems to be normal. And so in the beginning chapters of my book, I start out with talking about how my fiance came home one day and he decided that he was going to end our relationship very violently. And when I look back now, I was very strong to not go back to him. I left that day when that happened to me. And I think I will do a reading as well that kind of covers that a little bit, because I think people need to know what it feels like to be in that moment. If you haven't experienced it, this will help you to experience or understand what women feel in that moment. But it wasn't just, that experience. There was multiple repercussions from growing up in that home. And all the statistics and the research around this shows that girls who grow up where they're witnessing domestic violence, they are more likely to be attracted to angry, toxic partners because that feels familiar to them. They are 6 times more likely to be sexually abused because they don't know that they have a right to their own voices and their own bodies and their own lives. And also boys who grow up in homes where they witness domestic violence are 10 times more likely to abuse partners in their adult years. And there was a recent study done by the Lancet Psychiatry Commission on gender-based violence globally, and it was found that 1 in 4 women around the world will experience intimate partner violence before the age of 50. That's 1 in 4 globally. In South Africa, the country of my birth, that number is 1 in 2. So if you ever visit South Africa and you're meeting a group of women, just know that half of them will have experienced intimate partner violence. They have already experienced it, or they're experiencing at that moment. And we have to pay attention to this. We cannot keep looking away and thinking, oh, it's your private issue to sort out. It's a heart issue, it's a relational issue, and it affects everybody around the world. And so the whole point of this was not to give you context around the issue, but I hope that you do understand the context around the issue. I wanted to read from my book in a later chapter where I finally started looking for counseling, for proper help at the age of 30. And this just speaks to how a victim mentality can get really inbuilt into women who've experienced this form of violence. So if that's you today watching this video and you feel stuck and you feel like this is all that you can experience, and this is your life, I want to tell you it's not. You don't have to live as a victim of what has happened to you. You can break out of that. And this is how I found out. So let me stop talking and get into my reading. So on page 68, under the chapter Monsters Behind Masks, which is chapter 7, if you have the book, you can follow along. I didn't want this to be my story. I didn't want to be stuck in the same patterns of dysfunction. I wanted to find a way to reset my life. But I also didn't want this to be my life. Then there was one session that was a watershed moment. Now I'm talking about the counseling sessions that I was having, and I call my counselor Carla. So I share the dialogue. The Carla says, Cheryl, all these things that have happened to you, they are bad, and you didn't deserve that. But there was some point where you had a choice. Me. What choice? I didn't choose to be born into a home where we would experience so much pain. Carla, yes, you were a victim when you were younger, but as you got older and had more options, you made choices. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They, the abusers, were at fault. They were the reason my life was so messed up. How could I have made better choices? This conversation reminded me of a lecture I attended. The researcher was presenting a talk about her study into the effects of domestic violence on women. She went through all the psychological, emotional, and socioeconomic effects that one could expect. All of these I ticked off in my head. I was waiting for her to present a case study of how women were able to heal from the trauma they experienced and rewrite their stories. She didn't mention anything. So I put my hand up and asked the question, has your research covered how women can overcome the experiences they've had and go on to live a successful life? She seemed surprised at my question and replied, yes, we have done research around the effects of it. We haven't really covered, how they've really healed. But can we really expect these women to live normal lives after everything they've been through? That condescending response made me livid. For years, I was trying to break out of this invisible prison. I tried church. I tried being good. I kept showing up at work. I read books. I tried joining different groups, one of which turned out to be a freaking cult. I asked people to mentor me. Many were too busy. And yet, I still wasn't in my skin. My brain had done a great job in creating coping mechanisms when I wasn't able to process everything in my early years. But now, all the over-shopping and overeating and ever-present anxiety kept pointing to the gaping hole in my soul that couldn't be filled. Statistics only point to the shadows. We had to live there. I was mad at the researcher because it was easy to do a study, analyze the subject, and come up with calculated conclusions about the fate of the women behind the numbers. But studying the problem didn't change the people. And after failing to change the people around me, I was finally trying to change myself, even though that felt pointless too. Maybe the researcher was right. Maybe I just needed to accept my fate. I just needed to play the cards I'd been dealt and make peace with the fact that I was broken. Brokenness is coded into our operating system. Insane is your familiar. Abnormal is your normal. Up is down, wrong is right. And you accept that you don't have a right to your own life. You don't know any other way to be, yet you feel wrong on so many levels. You don't know how to change it. In fact, you feel powerless to change it. So that was page 70 in my book, and you can see there's a lot more to go. So there's obviously more story after that. But I decided to read that part because I think if you have been or are experiencing some form of abuse or violence, and you think that you deserve it, that you really are actually not worth more than that, I want to tell you, and I think there's something inside of you that says that can't be true, that can't be right. Why did I get stuck with this life? And As a writer, I can tell you that it is difficult, but you can rewrite your story. And I've only been able to do that because I just got tired of survival. I got tired of living in the lie of brokenness. And I do really say this is my message to the world, that brokenness is a lie. We don't have to accept that. We don't have to live as broken people just going through the motions. I think the mental health crisis that we're experiencing around the world is telling us that this disconnect between our head and our heart is making us sick. And so as my message or multiple messages for the 16 days of activism, what I want to share today from my reading is that you don't have to be defined by what people have done to you. I don't know your story, I only know mine. And most likely you've experienced horrible things at the hands of people. But you can also experience wonderful things at the hands of people too. They're not all evil people. And as we get stronger, as we decide, I'm not living as a victim, I'm not living in shame, I'm not living in brokenness, I am going to find who I really am. That is your true quest, is to find a way to reconnect head and heart. That's where your power lies, right there. And that's what I found in embracing wholeness and actually coming back to the truth about who I am. And that does require, I think, a spiritual quest as well, to really discover a God of love. And that is what also has helped me to be restored in my wholeness, because there is meaning, there is purpose that is there to be discovered. And so I hope that me sharing my message, that if you have experienced a form of violence, a form of abuse in your life, that is not the end of your story. There's so many chapters ahead that you get to write. And it might mean letting go of some of these relationships that are keeping you stuck in a war zone. I had to walk away from that relationship at age 22. It was very painful. I didn't think that anyone could love me. I felt so unlovable. But I've learned that unless I learn to love myself, no one else can. And so I really hope today that you watching this video is going to inspire you to believe that there's a seed of hope there that says, actually, I want out of this. I don't have to be stuck in this relationship. If this person is no longer in my life, it will be painful, but I'd rather be alone than be in a place where I could be killed. And I don't want you to be living in fear and anxiety every single day. I know what that feels like. And it's not really living, it's just surviving. And there's more to life than that. There's wholeness ahead, there's life ahead, there's joy ahead. And I really want that for you. So please, if you're listening to this today, I want to encourage you to take that step of faith, take that step of courage, and walk away from the person who doesn't really love you. Because if they loved you, they wouldn't be, I think I can end there. If you know somebody who is in a relationship where you can see that it is not healthy or toxic, I want to ask you to please make sure that you are always staying open and loving to that person. They already feel shameful for being in this relationship. They already know that people don't approve of this relationship. Always let them know, at least once a week, that they can always come to you. They can always talk to you, that your love is there and unconditional and available for them. If I can rewrite my story, that anyone can. And that's my hope that I want to give to you the 16 days against gender-based violence. Thank you for watching.